So, as we start this session, Preeti, Alexandria, and Govind, um, just a quick check in terms of this. Before we start off with anything, I want to read something for you, and based on that, we will start this session. Right? So, here it goes. I will just put myself on the spotlight and see if that works. Yes. All right, it does work. So, here goes a poem that I have written. It's always quiet in the deep waters that the whales call home. There are no sounds of horns blaring, cookers whistling at 8 at 4:30 in the morning. It's always the quiet hour. There aren't crows going cow cow, cats meow, nor the constant bickering that happens at home that follows you anywhere like a bad scent that refuses to go home. The whales sometimes sing, a beacon for other friends to catch up. It gets lonely at times, nothing but the blue expanse. Right now, I want to go there. I want to go there and ask the whales to take me around in silence. I want the quiet hour. Maybe watch a sunset, the sun set from orange to pink and disappear. And then with my whale friend, hunt down the sun way below the horizon. It's too much these days. I need a break from home, break from office, and all the sound. It's just that I want to hear my own voice again in the quiet hour just for myself. So I would now, after you heard this, invite you to share any reflections that you have. Preeti, anything you would like to add? Alexandria, anything you would like to add? Govind.
I think uh, it does resonate to a lot of our coaching conversations where there are multiple chatters going on, right? There is a silence. You are somewhere, but there is something else calling you. Um, I think beautiful lines too, right? Vale is somewhere. It's totally a different place, but then you're also bringing in the whistle of cooker and, uh, you know, it's kind of a metaphor talking about what's happening now and then what's happening in the background. So yeah, that's what comes to me.
Mm-hmm. And now I will give uh, others a shot at it. And there's part two of this exercise as well, in terms of reading it. Now, I want you to read and tell me if anything catches your attention. And it's shared on the chat window. When you read it, what catches your attention? Yes, Preeti.
The first two lines talks about it sounds like it's the night hours, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then the second paragraph is all about in the morning. Um, you're also mentioning it's like 4:30. But then you're also saying there is no cow cow, which means the early morning birds are not uh, not making those chatter. So I'm a little confused now with the, is it a night you're referring to, or
Mm-hmm.
but you do
All
want
right.
to go there. That's what I'm,
Mm-hmm.
irrespective
So
of
what?
that timing.
Mm-hmm. So if you look back at it, in terms of whenever you find time, um, is that these are all metaphors. It's like, Hansel and Gretel, and you're one leading to the other. And if the theme of the poem is to be asked, is just that I want to be left alone, or I just want to hear my voice all over again, is the final statement. And it it's not set in any timeline, except that it's all over the place. One I'm talking about sunset, one I'm talking about something else. So typically in your client segment also there will be a lot of flowing around here and there, but there will also be a feeling rather than a fact. And this has got nothing to do with how poetry and storytelling coexist. Oh, sorry, poetry and coaching coexist. I'm Rushali, good to see you here. Garcia, something what I felt is, oh, I see the sense of smell as well. It's very grounding to tap into many senses. Alexandria, can I request you to share by, opening the mic and like at least with voice? And I'll come back to you, Preeti, if you have further questions. So Alexandria basically writes, I think something like quiet hour is relatable to everyone, but also manifests in different ways. So the lines may resonate in general, and someone may be able to add something that is more specific to their experience of a quiet hour. And yeah, so a quiet hour. Reading it, I see that there is more free form, and what makes it natural as if the persona is sharing it personally. At first, it's more sound related, then it's more visual at the end. Ah, okay. No worries. No worries at all. Right. So, why did I give you two different experiences? One with asking you to read, and the other with me reading. And Vishal, if you're finding yourself lost, we're talking about what I just sent in the chat. So we are sitting and first I read the poem, second I asked you to read it. And in the second part, you generally have made more meaning out of it than what I did in the first place. Is that a is that an understanding? Because the difference was when I read it, you were only listening. And when you read it, you were feeling it. And I just want to ask you gently again, is what metaphor reached out to you in that entire thing? If you had to choose one thing that you most resonated with, what was that?
I think the whole thing exported me to an ocean,
Mm.
on the shore, and everything became so real. Sunset, whale, uh, everything, the sound,
Hmm. Who are you at, who are you at the beach?
myself.
Okay. So you are yourself and the whale, the sunset, the beach, everything is with you. How are you feeling if I were to ask?
Oh, that's so deep.
Shruti? And when you read it, whose voice did you read it in, or who it reminded you of?
Can't remember, but maybe all the past memories of, visiting the shore, the calmness. So yeah, those came up.
So let's pause this for a second. Right? So I've read the poem. I've asked you to read it, and when I read it, this it becomes the first person. Um, yeah, so like I am doing it. So that's the difference, right? From an external input to an internal input. That's the difference that when you read it. And let's pause for a second here. Um, do you believe poetry has a space in coaching? I do believe in it, so that's why I'm doing it.
I do
But what do
believe,
you
but
think?
yeah, I do because I do write poems. So it's just in a form of an expression. Because there has been times after a coaching experience, I felt like describing it uh, in a poetry way. So I do feel it has a spirit. I've never tried it, but one
Mhm.
coaching was amazing. I felt like something, which has to be described. So yeah, there is a space. Looks like.
Exactly. There's space for poetry everywhere, not just in coaching, right? So you're entering an AI ecosystem where if you give a word, if you tell it to write something, it'll write and give it to you. But the joy of writing is something that is unparalleled. Right? So why am I telling all of that? Is to sort of set the segment saying, when did I figure it out? So I have been a writer for the last 15 years. For me, writing is something that came to me very naturally. It was way back in 2011. I remember sitting in a physics class, finding out something and doodling, and somehow I wrote my first poem in Kannada, which is my native language. And after that, I wrote for 8 years straight, and I was not a trained writer at any point of time. And now, maybe 7,500 poems over many, many years have come along, and a lot of stories also have come along. So I had that skill when I got into coaching, but I never found a way to integrate how coaching and this can coexist at the same place. And that came to me very strangely in a session. So I will tell you the context, and possibly you will also be able to relate to that. So this is a client who came to the session very stiff, very logical minded. So that was the first impression of the person. And this is the first call that we had, or maybe the second call that we had. And he said, look, I want to figure out my digital marketing game. And he was a digital marketer. And he said, for me, the problem is I can do digital marketing for someone else and put them out there, brand them. But doing that for myself is going to be it has been a problem. Problem statement shared. Okay, at that point of time, I was still in an ACC, so I was not that well refined with my coaching. You can also say that. And at that same point, I asked him, saying, "What do you like at the end of the session?" He's like, "I don't know. We'll have to figure that out." How will you know? I don't know. What will you feel? I have no idea how I'll feel. I just know that this is not what I want right now. Um, what's an outcome that you would be not happy with? I have no idea. I just want to figure out. So this led me to ask all the standard questions. Didn't work. And at that point of time, I worked with somebody else from Poland. I think Amy from Poland. And she, one of the sessions asked, what's the color that's coming to you at this point of time? And as soon as I asked the color, it was a different ball game in the conversation because he said the color I'm seeing is black, and what's the opposite was my next question. It's white, and what's happening? So in his white, this thing it transformed into a white handkerchief, and white handkerchief that had its center slowly turned red and move out. And through the conversation of exploring this is the most unknown conversation I've had at that point of time in coaching. It somehow landed up at a point of being bullied in high school about posting on, I think at that point of time, Orkut or something. And the rest just fell into place because the conversation moved. Why am I telling that to you in terms of context of poetry is that creativity exists at times. And more so in this point, if you look at it, what happened was the answers were already inside. Okay. Preeti, you are a fellow PCC, you also studied for a PCC segment. You'll know that metaphors and imagery is something that we always stress upon. And sometimes there is a vocabulary for some of those metaphors, and sometimes there isn't a vocabulary for those metaphors. And the ones that we use as stories have the calling card of the metaphor. Metaphors are typically calling cards. And they are called from memory, called from expression, called from English vocabulary slash linguistic vocabulary. And they're stored with us in our own stories. And instead of copying hundreds of lines of the story, all I know is that I feel like I'm in two boats at once. Without me explaining everything to you, you will know what I mean. And that's what the power of metaphors are. But the poetry aspect of it is that you will have to tell me what you mean. And sometimes you don't even know what you mean. And that's where coaching comes into play. And especially here in this example, what happened is the logical side has done its entire maze. Like if you look at a maze, the logical side has gone through the entire maze and nothing has arrived out of it. Or all logical solutions out of that are gone. And emotionally also you have no idea what it needs to be because that's behind the black box or behind the door that you don't know exists in the first place. And when the client said, kept on saying, I don't know, the client is getting into more frustration, more deeper into that frustration than anything else. And your conventional method of coaching had failed at that point of time. So, with permission, what happened afterwards was switch off. So, it was basically suddenly, if you're looking at a kid who's fallen down, right? This happens in multiple spaces. The kid's fallen down, the kid's crying, and the elderly person picks the kid up and says, look, Chandamama, or looks, the moon is here. And suddenly the kid looks up, completely forgets about crying. It's an almost instantaneous switch. And here in that session, that's exactly what happened. And that's how I figured out, oh, there's more to this. Because whatever is shared as some of those shared are already vocabulary metaphors. Like, we already know how to sit with that. But in the I don't know that I don't know space is perfect black box. You don't know what's happening. And you don't know that you don't know. And that are your blind spots, blind alleys, back to black boxes, whatever you would like to share. But the body's wisdom remembers, or there is something that is to be unlocked, and we don't know. And in this example with the child and the crying, because there's the attention switch off from something that's not working or something that's hurting, paining, to something that is so innocent, you move out of that place. And in that moving out of this place, something else is opened in your head. And then whatever comes along is absolutely anything that comes in the flow. And then the magic of coaching takes over. And then you explore metaphors, colors, numbers, segments, XYZ. This is one of those. So, one of the people that I initially spoke to while I understood the whole gambit of. So, here I'd known creativity. And before that, I was teaching people how to write. I had done about 100 workshops or 80 workshops at that point of time and teaching youngsters and adults how to write. What I understood while reflecting is that what can I make the client write in the session by teaching these segments and or giving that as a tool for the client, essentially switching it off from a logical dead end to something that's so innocent at that point. All I'm asking is, what's the color? What you're seeing? Are you open to something like that? Because the movement is almost physically there in the brain to something. The neural pathways, a new neural pathways is being triggered, something else gets combined, and then there's always interpretation on that. Because when the first time I told you, you are trying to understand the poem. The second space when you read it, you are trying to interpret it for yourself. You are making meaning for yourself. So when you write your own stuff and then you read your own stuff, that's when the interpretation, the reflective self exercise is happening. And that's where solutions can arrive. Not that there's a guarantee that will arrive. But what it switches off is that state of, oh, I don't know, and you're going spiraling out of that into a space where you figure out what's happening. The similar segments have happened in multiple other sessions. So somebody like colors have worked. So somebody who was an IIT grad wanted to figure out how he makes friends, and this is where I love coaching some of these topics. These are not your topics that AI will take over. Not anytime soon, right? So here, how do you do that? So after a lot of base conversations, what ended up happening was the person on the other side, uh, youngster about 18, 19 years at that point. He, I asked him, the conversation was, what's a color that's coming to you at this point of time? And he said red. So there were conversations around that. And then, the conversation basically had gone to a point where what's a good friendship, what's a bad friendship. So here, this fellow is trying to figure out what his kind of friendship is. And good friendship is green, bad friendship is red. And I asked, what's holding you in between? And his instantaneous, unfiltered answer was yellow. And my presence at that point said, Uh, it looks to me that it looks like a traffic light, red, yellow, green. Right? I love you, red, yellow, green. And that for him was an aha moment in that space to say, oh, I think it for me is like, how do I get people into a friendship? So there's a red, there's a yellow, and there's a green. And sometimes there's a white, there's a black also. So he interpreted it himself. So the wisdom came from him in this session and not from anybody else. Right. So Flavio, so because you jumped in at this point, I will give you an assignment in the chat. So read it for yourself, as in like when I'm talking, just in a pause, sit with that and read, and tell me what comes up for you or what is something that you resonate with the most. Right. And in the interim, Alexandria, are you back? And do you want to share something? Yes. And Karina,
Hello.
because you're here, just look at the chat and read what is being shared and let me know what resonates with you as well. Yes, Alexandria.
Yes, I was saying that it felt grounding because of the use of the senses. So
Mhm.
I'm not a coach, by the way, but I'm familiar with, some breathing or meditation exercises when people are asked to just come into their senses and just see what's around, nothing of anything else. And that's what this poem felt like to me. It
Mhm.
felt like, just
Wow,
um
beautiful.
yeah, thank you. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Thank you. Um, Flavio or and Karina, anything you'd like to add? Maybe even go in. Anything you'd like to add?
I'm still reading, so
No, no worries. You take your time.
thank you.
And Karina, curiosity's sake, is there a metaphor that you resonate to in the entire poem, or any word or anything in the poem that you resonate with? So in coaching, we've understood that metaphors are meaning-making spaces for clients. A client will remember a lot of the things that have happened over a period of year. Many spaces. It's easier to remember through a metaphor. And a metaphor becomes a calling card for a story or a memory or something else. And instead of expressing in, say, 10,000 lines, I express in one. And which typically is what happens in poetry also. A client is able to express quite a lot of stuff in just a single sentence or a single space while sharing. And especially when they're stuck, that means their logical, interpretive style or the cognitive space is off. Even from a somatic space that's off. They're not able to have a vocabulary for that. They don't even know that something like this exists. And once I've asked them to write and share something, they basically are going to always come back to me and say what resonated with them. And they will then open up for something like that. So this has happened session across session, wherein we've asked them to write something. And they've come back with a space and said, this is the one statement that really resonated with me. And that combined with whatever was the contract has helped us navigate the conversation way deeper and get to solutions faster. And that has how it has been for me in terms of how poetry and coaching can coexist. Because at the end or at the beginning, when you're making somebody write something, they are not trying to understand what is happening. They are believing in the coach and just as simply as that, expressing themselves. And once the expression has come by, they're able to then sit with it, reflect on it, and bring context back to us a conversation. Like this also happens when the client is stuck. So we've done the contract, the client does not know how to figure it out. Especially deep explorative conversations, these are beautiful spaces, colors, numbers, metaphors, imagery, asking them to write. There's another coach that I know who used to read a poem and say, what do you interpret from that? And she used to pick a random page, read a poem, and say, what do you interpret from that? And then how do you also pick it back to your coaching space? Still, the client is leading. Still, it is a tool that we are building up. Still, an aspect of creative consciousness that is coming. And at a space where it moves into a equation where the client is making their own meaning. So I'm not pushing any meaning to them. But this acts as a tool to switch them off from saying nothing is working to something else that at that point, because they know the answer to that one, they will forget whatever had happened before and move to another plane. And while moving, so something shifts within them. And that is the timeline for us as a coach or for us as somebody who knows poetry, storytelling, expression, creativity to drop in something and say, hey, what just happened there? And the rest of the coaching call can just move. So that's how creativity itself can exist. Flavio, anything you'd like to add? I saw you deeply involved with reading the poem.
The reading inspired me calm and relax. I think, yeah.
Fantastic, fantastic. All right, right. So let me give you an activity. Give me a second. All right. Are all of you able to see what I'm presenting? Okay. Not possible. Wait. I will change my background.
It's an elephant.
Yes.
Yeah.
This is what I am giving you with, right? This is all that I will ask you to look at. And I want you to write, say, 10 words, 10 individual English words or whatever linguistic that you follow. 10 words that come to you as and when you see this object. To spot like myself. Yeah. And once the 10 words are done, just give me a thumbs up. Right. Karina is done with it. Others, Alexandria is done with it. One more minute. Hmm. All right. All right. Interesting. Go and stay with that. Vishali, anything you would want to add? All right. Mary and Anshul, are you also good? Govind is brimming to tell a story of what's the funny one. Now, any guesses that this is 100% bet? Out of the 9 people or the 8 people that are here, do you think anyone will have the same story? Like any two of you will have the same story. Clear, unanimous answer that all of you will not have the same story, but all of you are present to the same object. And because something else triggered for you, there's a different metaphor for this. And there's a different meaning. And all your 10 words that you would have written, maybe one or two would be a similar segment, but none of it hold the same segment. And now, in those 10 words that you have picked up, I want you to write something free flow writing with using minimum 3 words, maximum all 10 words. Write something. 5 minutes.
Sorry, repeat that, Sunil. How
In
many
the 10
sentences?
words that you have, uh, minimum using 3 words that you have picked up, or using all of them, and maybe general other English language words, or any in linguistic spaces. Use that and write something free flow writing. Just write whatever comes to your mind. All right, one more minute. Bring whatever you're writing to a pause, a comma, rather than a full stop. How many of you are excited to share what you wrote? And while you are writing, did any of your questions get answered? Anything that was sitting for quite some time? Remember, I had no idea that I will ask the elephant to make an appearance. I had no idea who you are or who's going to come to the session. We had no idea this will trigger somebody to smile, remember a song, write about something. And this was in your unknown. But whatever's emerged right now is currently or something has happened, and we will sit to discuss with that. Anyone wants to share whatever you've written? If you're still writing, it's completely fine, but just generally put a comma where you are and then come back after the session, which will happen in another 5-10 minutes. Yeah. So question is Preeti's excitement is greater or Govind's excitement is greater? I'm sensing Govind is glowing, so let's give Govind a shot. Go for it, Govind. Yeah. Showered in peace. Who does it remind you of, Govind? You are on mute, not unmuted. Out of words. All right, I can sense that. But then this was a metaphor you came up with. This is a story you came up with. And there's possibly history to that, there's possibly future to that, and there's possibly present to that. Right? There could be questions it's bringing up. There could be memories flashing. There could be a person that it is making you get in touch with. There's a version of you that it could get in touch with. But just with 4 lines, and that too with one single picture, that triggered 4 lines, and that has opened up so many neural pathways, either in terms of memory, in terms of cognition, in terms of understanding. And now just sitting with that poem will be a background for whatever was the contract that we would have said when the client is stuck. Or this could be a starting point for a coaching call. Because this would open up so many things that the client does not know. And just processing it itself becomes a session. And from that there will be other things that will come by. So that's how poetry and coaching can coexist, even inside a session and beginning of a session. And some of the tools that I've developed over a time helps many people with that first shot to, okay, yes, let me put it up there. Because they didn't expect anything. This comes, this destroys the logical side, saying, hey, it'll work, it'll not work. Because none of you had that question saying, will it work? You just did it because it was an exercise. And you did it without thinking. When you are writing, you're not thinking. You are in the flow. Thinking is mulling over and saying, oh, what is it? In silence, you think. But while writing, your hands moving. It's like there's an internal connection between your brain, what is happening inside, and the hand. It moves. And there's no time for you to think about what you're writing. You can only think whether you've written is good, bad, etc. after you've written it. Or while you've read what you just parallel processing. But the actual process, you aren't thinking. And that is the gold that you are extracting because the client stopped thinking. And thinking is what's got them to the I don't know part. Makes sense? Preeti, anything you would like to add? Flavio, Alexandria, Karina, Shali, Mary, Anshul.
So basically, Sunil, if I'm getting this right, you're saying this could also work as a tool to break that state of being where they're stuck. It's like a little creative break, and they can, we can help them think straight. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, yes. To a large extent, yes. To simplify it, yes. To a large extent, rather to in short, in condensed format, yes. But then there are so many things it brings up. Say, I think Govind is glowing, so uh, it's a different glow. So it's something that was dormant, not even knowing has been awakened. So the responsibility of the coach is to also get them there and also get them out. So that's where it takes skill, it takes space, and that's why I said in short it is one. Because then later coaching other skills also will bring a space, but it is just that break. So it's from a uh, unknown space to something that feels curious. So like I said, the kid who has fallen is crying, and then somebody picks them up and says, "Look at something there," and automatically the attention goes there, and you start observing, and you completely forget the pain you are in or that you had just taken a fall. And that is similarly what happens inside, and that's what we're tapping on when it is a stuck situation, because they don't want to be physically, emotionally, mentally there in that place, so then they're there. Then by giving this, what you're making them switch is to switch to another place. Far more easier. The brain's tricked into saying, "Hey, I know this answer." While answering that, it also reveals something else. And if nothing else, it breaks them out of that loop. Yes. But I'm curious now what others wrote. Right? And if you want me to switch off the recording, I'd be happy to switch off and say, yes, this is the technical end of the segment of what we had to share. Yeah, absolutely. It helps you in the flow state by duping your minds. I think that's the right word to get there. And the noise gets filtered. But of the story or whatever that you came up with, does that answer anything else for you? Okay, what I wrote. Uh, who knew that a grandparent's trinket, a little woodcraft of something huge made so small, would be a family heirloom that makes up a child's happy memory and a source of strength to always address the elephant in the room. Wow. Alexandria, we have a poet in the house. Yeah, like multiple poets in the house. Govind is one, Preeti is one, I am one, you are one. And Flavio, Kirina, Prashali, Mary, and Anshul as well. So that's a lovely write. And if this segment of work is done in a group context, then it's another big self-awareness journey in itself, because what Alexandria writes and what Govind shares and what somebody else said, Preeti gives up in writing, is going to be a space of is a fodder for somebody else, and some of your questions may be answered. And what I loved about what Alexandria just wrote is something huge made so small. So everybody will resonate to something different in whatever you're doing. Yeah, thanks, Karina. No problem. We'll see you on the other side.
Can I read it? I wrote it in the notebook.
Oh, yes,
My
absolutely.
So I wrote, I found this funny baby elephant, a brownie cutie, a happy little Appu, a playful doll reminding happy times, the fun times, the joy times, the naughty, noisy memories, all packed in little brownie doll.
Little,
All packed in little brownie doll.
little brownie doll. Oh, fantastic. Nice. So we can actually say, okay, we can publish a book if there are 10 people who attend the session. So 10 of us write 10 poems, 100 poems, they can publish a book. But how did you feel now after you've written it? Do you recall something that becomes a object of reference, a person of reference when you think about it?
It's just the joy, curiosity, childlike enjoyment, just a happy times. You have no pressure. I didn't use the
And
word peace, but what Govind mentioned, right? So yeah, I think it's
mm,
just that it brings you back to that childhood.
right. What part of your life would benefit from moving to that place?
No, be don't be too strict. Don't take yourself too seriously. You know, uh, go a little slow, little lighter moments. Yeah, so that's what I'm doing now. So this comes to me as a message. And surprisingly, Sunil, when I go down to in the park and all, I've been seeing this baby elephant very often. Uh, and then to surprise now, you also show the baby elephant. So it just
Uh,
kinds of, reiterate this message that yes, have more fun
mm,
times.
wow. And you are not a paid actor, so we hadn't said, okay, this is what you have to say for this call. And everything has emerged in the conversation. Right? This is an emergence in the conversation. And this also because we've been talking about AI and coaching for a long time, for some time. AI and coaching cannot beat what just happened here. And if we sit with it, it can go into deeper aspects, Preeti, and whoever is sharing, and go into deeper aspects. Realized how it can surface going on in a person's life. When I wrote it, took me on a journey of remembering my grandma's birthday next week. Don't have any ways and unconscious. Yes. A lot of this is coming from the subconscious. A lot of that, what I have given a term is called the creative consciousness. And, you know, it's coming from a space where you don't even know that it exists. It's that space. And uh, all of our writings come from a place we don't even know where it's coming from. And that's what makes the meaning making segment even more beautiful because you're sitting, reflecting, figuring out what's happening, what's not happening, and then jumping in. And what happened today is just a glimpse of what can happen. But here I have a little. There's a lot of free flow in an ICF session or in a session with a client with ICF core competencies being put into play. This would have a contract, this would have a specific conversation they're stuck with, then permission, then jumping in, then reflection, then deepening, then action items, then closure. So that's how the whole segment can come by. And again, it's pure presence and pure intuition. What's the kind of question to ask? Allow them to emerge in the session, build on competencies of trust and safety, listen actively to what's not being said, and the kind of questions that you ask will actually make or break coaching call there. I remember one of these spaces. So there's another exercise. I asked the person to do that exercise, come back, and he gave me a full-fledged picture of what was happening, descriptively described what had happened in that space. And my next question was, "What did you hear?" And he was stumped, and he's like, I don't think I heard anything." And the killer coaching question was, what in life are you seeing but not hearing? And the next 15 minutes was the end of the class. It was 1 hour. We finished it, or like this is actually a demo conversation. If you had to look at it, in the next 15 minutes, he found two or three aspects of his life that, this gave an answer to. So it's also the follow-up questions as much that makes the difference. But there's a lot to be explored in that side of space because if it was logical, you would have already figured it out. If it was cognitive and say, or if it was somatic, the body would have something. But even when logic, cognition, and somatic have not given answers. That's where this can give. Because now it's given a voice to what was happening, even with somatic. So with that, I close the session. I'm very excited this session happened because at 7:15 nobody had joined. And me and Govind were contemplating whether to not have the conversation at all. And at 8:10, I am so happy that this happened. The unknown realms, the key interest in Vedic astrology. Wow. Ketu is coming up again and again. Into I haven't done expressive arts and therapy facilitation before, as in like formally done it. But then I think this falls right in that category. But I can also, like if, but I do teach this for other coaches as well, like how to make this happen. It's been a long, uh, desire of mine to do a workshop and do it internationally. So, but I don't know when that'll happen. Uh, if Anchal can help me with Vedic astrology and give it a date, we will be able to do that. But there's this is whatever happened here is just the tip of the tip of the tip of the iceberg. There's more on the unknown segments that there's somebody I know who does tarot card reading as a coaching format. Somebody else does something. So very few across the ICF. Even I think in terms of the people that I met, around 3,000 plus coaches that I've met, the poetry ones are about five, six. The writing ones are maybe slightly more. Reflective writing ones are slightly more. The poetry ones are very less. One or two sessions, I think, across the ICW, where two of them are talking about poetry and coaching, but somehow I haven't been able to because my session coincides with theirs. So yeah, but otherwise, there's so much more the unknown aspects of that build onto what can happen, what is and what isn't, what is hidden. I think Ketu is the hidden part, if I remember Anchal. So what's hidden is coming through Ketu. Alexandrian Mary Ketu is a metaphorical representation in the Hindu ecosystem or the Vedic ecosystem of planetary movement. Wherein the story is that somebody would have, or one person would have gotten to attain immortality, and he would have drank the space of, an elixir that promises all of life. And one person finds out, and the person who's drunk that is actually the demon version of a human being or demon version. And the supreme god version releases something that cuts their neck off. And the neck gets cut in such a way that the what's that? The Amrita, as we call it, that's the elixir of all of life, has only touched until the throat. So the throat and the head continue to exist, and the body doesn't. So this particular planet that is given that name exists only in shadow. And there's one planet that exists and one planet that exists as a shadow. So that's the understanding. Yeah. Oh, interesting. Uh, all right. Alexandra, do let me know in case there are others. I think my numbers with all of you guys. At any time you feel there are good, interesting sessions that are happening, uh, don't feel, don't hesitate. Don't be a stranger. Put it to me on my personal message, not on the group, because then group becomes, if you allow one segment to jump in, and then it becomes a crazy segment to build it. So anything like this in terms of art-based therapy, art-based spaces, anything that allows the creative aspects to come along, jump in. ICF South Africa has a steady segment once in a month where they do a reflective writing or writing prompts. Swea does it. Swea Van de Hoon. She's a very dear friend of mine. We also met through writing, and she's very strong MCC. And hopefully, we'll be having her as a guest speaker on the last Monday of this month for the tribe of coaches. So, and she, like across the ICF, they are the only ones. ICF South Africa does that with her space, and I will let you know once the next one happens. It was today at 6:15 or 6:30. Next one, I'll let you know when that happens. And Alexandra, even if you're not a coach, we could still stay in touch as poets for exchanging poetry. And we have a WhatsApp group for poets, and that's nothing to do with coaching. Me and Govind are part of it. Preeti, in case that's an interest for you, or Anchal and Alexandria, Mary, and anybody else, we could also have you join there and share your poems once in a while. Get well. But anyways, 8:15. That's where we said we will close this. Um, and we will close. Yeah, we will share the link in the group as well. All right, that's that for today in terms of what's happening